Call the beast back. The command cracked across the royal training yard instantly. Every soldier froze. At the center of the arena, chaos exploded across the sand as a massive black wolf circled the guards surrounding it. Snarls ripped through the air, chains dragged behind its body like broken metal vines. Alpha King Rhaegor Voss stood at the edge of the arena, watching everything unfold without moving. That alone terrified people, because Rhaegor's wolf was feared across the entire kingdom for one reason. It obeyed no one except him. A captain stepped forward nervously. "Your Majesty, it stopped responding during combat drills." Rhaegor's gaze stayed fixed on the wolf. "I can see that." Then something strange caught his attention. The wolf wasn't attacking, it was guarding. A servant girl stood near the far wall clutching a basket of training cloths against her chest, while soldiers kept their distance around her. And tied around the wolf's front paw, a thin, pale ribbon fluttered against black fur. Bright, deliberate, wrong. Rhaegor's voice lowered dangerously. "Who touched it?" No one answered. The soldiers looked terrified. One guard pointed shakily toward the servant girl. She was near the arena before the wolf reacted. Immediately, several guards grabbed her arms and dragged her forward. The girl didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't fight. Rhaegor noticed that too. "What's your name?" he asked. "Alyra." The wolf growled the second a soldier tightened his grip on her wrist. Not aggressive, warning. The entire yard went silent. A guard stepped backward nervously. "My king, it's protecting her." "That's impossible," another muttered. Rhaegor stepped closer slowly, eyes locked on the ribbon tied around his wolf's paw. "Did you approach my wolf?" he asked. Alyra looked at the beast behind him calmly. "No." "Then explain the ribbon." Before she could answer, one nervous guard reached toward her shoulder roughly. The wolf lunged instantly. Sand exploded across the arena as soldiers stumbled backward in panic. Rhaegor raised one hand sharply. "Stop." The wolf obeyed, but its body remained positioned between Alyra and everyone else, protective, intentional. Rhaegor stared at it for one long second, then spoke quietly. "That's not obedience," he said. A pause. "That's choice." The training yard emptied fast after that. Soldiers backed away from the wolf carefully, while healers rushed toward the injured guard, still coughing sand near the arena wall. Nobody got close to Alyra. Not anymore. 2 royal guards escorted her across the yard toward the upper platform where Rhaegor stood waiting. "Bow," one guard ordered sharply. Alyra didn't move. The guard grabbed her shoulder. "I said kneel." Before he could force her down, a low growl rolled across the arena. Every head turned instantly. The wolf had risen again, watching, focused directly on the guard touching her. Rhaegor noticed immediately. "Release her." The guard let go at once. Silence settled heavily across the yard. Rhaegor stepped down from the platform slowly until he stood directly in front of Alyra. Up close, she looked younger than he expected. Plain servant clothes, dust on her sleeves, a thin scrape across one wrist. Nothing about her explained why the most violent wolf in the kingdom had tied itself to her presence. Rhaegor studied her carefully. "Did you place the ribbon on my wolf?" "No." "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to ask your wolf." A sharp inhale spread through the guards nearby. Nobody spoke to the Alpha King like that. Rhaegor's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're either fearless or stupid," Alyra answered calmly. "If I were stupid, I would have run." That almost earned a reaction from him. Almost. One captain stepped forward angrily. "My king, she's clearly manipulating the beast somehow." Alyra looked at him. "Then go touch it." The captain went silent immediately. Rhaegor glanced briefly toward the wolf still standing at the center of the arena, watching her, waiting. "Explain exactly what happened," he ordered. Alyra crossed her arms lightly. "I was carrying cleaning cloths near the lower gate. It approached me first. And then, it grabbed the ribbon from my basket." With its teeth? Yes. And you let it? Elira looked confused by the question. It wasn't attacking me. Another dangerous silence followed. Then the captain snapped impatiently, "She's lying!" The wolf snarled instantly, violently. The captain stumbled backward so fast he nearly fell. Rhaegor watched the reaction carefully, then looked back at Elira. Interesting. The wolf wasn't reacting to fear, it was reacting to her. By nightfall, the wolf had been moved into the royal enclosure beneath the palace fortress. Massive iron chains lined the stone walls. Reinforced silver restraints locked across the floor. Guards stood outside the gate with weapons drawn, despite knowing none of it would matter if the beast truly lost control. Inside the enclosure, the wolf sat calmly in the center, watching the entrance, waiting. Rhaegor entered alone. The guards immediately shut the gate behind him. "You've embarrassed half the palace today," he said to the wolf. No reaction. Rhaegor stepped closer until he stood directly in front of it. Then his eyes dropped again to the ribbon tied around its front paw. A simple servant ribbon, pale blue, completely out of place against black fur and iron restraints. "Remove it," Rhaegor ordered. The wolf didn't move. His voice sharpened. "Release." Still nothing. That was wrong. The wolf always obeyed direct command eventually. Always. Rhaegor crouched slightly and reached for the ribbon himself. The wolf's growl vibrated instantly through the enclosure. Low, threatening, not at attack level. Warning. Rhaegor stopped. The beast had never warned him before. A healer standing outside the bars swallowed nervously. "My king. Perhaps we should test the connection first." Rhaegor looked over sharply. "Connection?" The healer stepped closer carefully. "The ribbon isn't physically attached anymore." "What does that mean?" "It reacted to emotional imprinting." Silence hit the enclosure. Rhaegor straightened slowly. "From a servant girl?" The healer hesitated. "Yes. That's impossible." "Normally, yes." Rhaegor turned back toward the wolf. The beast remained seated calmly, still guarding the ribbon, still refusing commands connected to it. Then something else became obvious. The wolf kept glancing toward the gate, toward the corridor outside, like it expected someone. Rhaegor noticed immediately. "You're waiting." The wolf's ears lifted slightly. The healer spoke carefully again. "My king, emotionally bonded wolves often anchor to familiar presences after imprinting." Rhaegor's gaze sharpened. "Say what you mean." Another hesitation. Then, "It's waiting for the girl." Silence spread heavily through the enclosure. The wolf lowered its head slightly against the floor, calm, certain. And for the first time in years, Rhaegor realized his wolf was no longer responding to him first. It was responding to someone else. Elira was dragged back to the royal enclosure before sunrise. Not gently. 2 guards escorted her through the lower palace corridors, while servants and soldiers moved out of the way the second they saw where she was being taken. "No one survives a second visit down there," one servant whispered. Elira heard him. She kept walking anyway. The moment the enclosure doors opened, the wolf reacted instantly. Its head snapped upward. Chains rattled violently across the stone floor as the beast surged toward the gate. Several guards jumped backward in panic. "Hold the restraints," a captain barked. The wolf ignored everyone except Elira. Rhaegor stood inside the enclosure, already waiting, watching, measuring. The second Elira stepped into view, the growling stopped. Completely. The silence that followed felt worse. Rhaegor noticed immediately. "Interesting," one guard muttered nervously. "It only calms around her." "Clearly," Rhaegor replied. Elira looked past him toward the wolf. "You chained it again. It breaks things." "So do frightened people." A few guards stiffened instantly at that. Rhaegor almost reacted. Almost. Instead, he stepped aside slightly. "Come closer." The captain snapped immediately. "My king, that's dangerous." Rhaegor never looked away from Elira. For who? Silence. Elira walked forward slowly until she stood only a few feet from the barrier. The wolf moved closer too. Massive paws against stone, golden eyes fixed entirely on her. Then it lowered its head slightly against the iron bars. Not submission, recognition. The ribbon tied around its paw flickered faintly under the torchlight. Rhaegor saw it immediately. "So the healer was right," he said quietly. Elira frowned. "About what?" "It's attached to you." "I didn't ask it to." "That's the problem." One council elder entered behind the guards, stopping short the second he saw the wolf calm beside her. "That shouldn't be happening," he said. Rhaegor's gaze remained fixed on the beast. "And yet it is." The elder stepped closer cautiously. "Separate them immediately before the imprint deepens." The wolf snarled violently the second he moved toward Elira. The elder froze. Rhaegor watched the reaction carefully, then exhaled once. "That's not instinct," he said quietly. The wolf pressed closer to the barrier beside Elira. Rhaegor's eyes narrowed. "That's recognition." The council chamber exploded into argument before sunrise fully reached the palace. "She needs to be removed immediately. The beast is destabilizing. This is servant-class interference with royal bloodline instincts. Enough." Rhaegor's voice cut through the chamber instantly. Silence dropped hard. Elira stood near the entrance under guard while council elders argued across the long stone table like she wasn't standing there. The wolf's growls echoed faintly from the enclosure below the chamber floor. Every time the guards tightened around Elira, the growling got louder. One elder pointed toward her sharply. "She's influencing it somehow." Elira answered before Rhaegor could. "If I controlled it, your guards wouldn't still be alive." Several captains looked uncomfortable at that. Because she was right. Rhaegor leaned back slightly in his chair. "Explain something to me." Elira looked at him. "Why does the wolf respond to you?" "I don't know. You expect me to believe that?" "Yes." The directness almost pulled a reaction from him again. One councilman slammed his hand against the table. "This is dangerous. The wolf barely responds to commands anymore." As if summoned by the accusation, a violent crash exploded beneath the chamber. The entire floor shook. Guards grabbed weapons instantly. Another crash followed, then snarling, loud, furious. A captain rushed toward the lower stairwell. "It's breaking restraints again." The council erupted immediately. "Separate the girl now. Move her away from the chamber." Two guards grabbed Elira's arms. The wolf roared below them, not growled, roared. The sound ripped through stone hard enough to freeze everyone in place. "Release her," Rhaegor ordered instantly. The guards obeyed at once. The roaring stopped. Dead silence followed. Every council member slowly looked toward Elira, then toward Rhaegor, because they all understood what just happened. The wolf wasn't reacting randomly. It was reacting to her treatment. Elira rubbed one wrist calmly. "I told you." One elder stared at her in disbelief. "That's not how wolves work." Rhaegor's gaze stayed cold. "Mine does." The chamber fell silent again. Then the elder said carefully, "My king, if the beast has anchored itself emotionally to her..." Rhaegor finished the thought himself. "Then forcing separation will make it worse." Nobody argued, because beneath the chamber floor, the wolf had already proven him right. The entire palace gathered at the royal enclosure by midday. Council elders lined the upper platform. Guards surrounded the lower arena with drawn weapons. Servants crowded the outer walls despite repeated orders to stay away. Nobody wanted to miss what happened next. At the center of the enclosure stood Elira, alone. One elder spoke sharply beside Rhaegor. "This is reckless." Rhaegor didn't look at him. "Probably." "And if the beast attacks?" Rhaegor's gaze stayed fixed ahead. "Then it attacks." The elder looked horrified by how calmly he said it. Inside the enclosure, the wolf paced violently behind the iron gate. Chains dragged heavily across stone while its growls rolled through the arena. Then Rhaegor lifted one hand. "Open it!" Shock spread instantly. "My king!" Several voices started at once. "Now!" The guards obeyed immediately. The chains unlocked first. Then the massive gate groaned open. Every soldier in the arena tightened their grip on weapons. The wolf stepped forward slowly. Massive, unstable, dangerous, straight toward Elira. Several guards raised crossbows instantly. Rhaegor noticed. "Lower them." No one moved. His voice dropped lower. "That wasn't a request." The crossbows lowered immediately. Inside the enclosure, Elira stayed perfectly still while the wolf approached her. One step, then another. The ribbon tied around its paw flickered faintly under the sunlight. A captain whispered nervously, "It's going to attack." But it didn't. The wolf stopped directly in front of Elira, close enough to crush her instantly if it wanted. Instead, it lowered its head beside her shoulder. The entire arena froze. Elira slowly lifted one hand, not commanding, careful. The wolf stayed still as her fingers brushed lightly against black fur. No snarling, no violence, only calm. Rhaegor watched everything in complete silence. Then the wolf moved again, not away from her, closer, positioning itself between Elira and the guards surrounding the arena. Protective. Final. One elder stepped backward in disbelief. It chose her. Nobody corrected him, because everyone could see it. Rhaegor finally spoke without looking away from the scene in front of him. "From today onward," he said calmly, "no one touches either of them." Silence spread across the entire arena, because the Alpha King had just protected a servant girl, the same way his wolf already had. Rhaegor summoned Elira to the upper royal balcony that night. No guards touched her on the way there. Nobody dared anymore. Servants moved aside immediately as she crossed the palace halls, while the wolf followed several steps behind her without chains, restraints, or commands. That part unsettled everyone most. The beast only walked freely for one person now, and it wasn't the Alpha King. Rhaegor stood near the balcony railing overlooking the torchlit city below when Elira arrived. "You dismissed the guards," she noticed. "I wanted answers. You won't like most of mine. That hasn't stopped you before." The wolf moved past her and settled near the balcony doors immediately, eyes locked outward like it was guarding both exits. Rhaegor watched the movement carefully. "It positions itself around you instinctively." Elira crossed her arms lightly. "Maybe it thinks your palace is dangerous." "That's because it is." That answer surprised her enough to pause briefly. Rhaegor noticed, then stepped closer. "Tell me exactly what happened the first time it approached you." Elira leaned lightly against the stone railing. "I was sorting cloths outside the training yard, and it came toward me." No fear response. She shook her head once. "No. That's impossible." "Not really." Rhaegor frowned slightly. "Explain." Elira looked toward the wolf resting near the doorway. "Everyone else sees a monster first. And you? I saw something angry." Silence settled between them. Rhaegor's gaze shifted briefly toward the beast, then back to her. "It doesn't listen to anyone else this way. I noticed. It barely listens to me now." Elira studied him for a moment before speaking carefully. "You sound bothered by that." Rhaegor gave a quiet laugh without humor. "A king should control his wolf. But you don't. Direct. Sharp. True." The wolf lifted its head slightly at the tension between them, but remained calm. Rhaegor exhaled once slowly. "No." That admission changed something immediately. Not politically. Personally. Elira noticed it too. Then Rhaegor looked toward the wolf again and spoke quieter this time. "It listens to you differently." The wolf's ears shifted toward Elira instantly, like it agreed, By the next morning, the palace had changed around Elira completely. Servants who once ignored her now stepped aside the second she entered a corridor. Guards tracked her movements nervously. Council members lowered their voices whenever she passed nearby, not because of her, because of what walked beside her. The wolf followed Elira through the palace halls without restraint, massive paws echoing across stone floors, while terrified nobles moved out of its path instantly. One servant whispered, "This is madness." Another replied quietly, "No, this is protection." Elira heard both. She kept walking. Near the eastern staircase, 2 council guards suddenly blocked her path. "My lady," one said stiffly. Elira frowned slightly. "I'm not your lady. The council requests your presence." "Rhaegor knows?" The guards hesitated. That answer was enough. The wolf stopped moving beside her immediately. Low growling rolled through the corridor. One guard stepped back nervously. "Control it." Elira looked at him calmly. "You first." The second guard reached for her arm anyway. Everything happened instantly after that. The wolf slammed forward with a violent snarl that shook the hallway walls. Guards crashed backward into stone pillars while servants screamed and scattered across the corridor. Weapons flew free. Nobody got the chance to use them. "Stop!" Rhaegor's voice cracked across the hall sharply. Silence hit immediately. The wolf froze beside Elira, body still positioned between her and the guards struggling to stand. Rhaegor approached slowly from the far corridor, eyes cold enough to silence everyone present. "What exactly?" he asked quietly. "Did you think would happen?" The guards lowered their heads instantly. One council elder rushed forward breathlessly. "My king, we only intended to question her privately." "Without my permission?" Silence. Rhaegor stopped beside Elira. The wolf shifted instantly closer to her side again, protective, watching everyone. Rhaegor noticed, then looked directly at the council elder. "Listen carefully," he said calmly. "Anyone who touches her again answers to me personally." Nobody spoke, nobody argued, because standing beside Elira now wasn't just the kingdom's most feared wolf. It was the Alpha King himself. 3 days later, the palace stopped trying to separate them. Not because the council agreed, because the wolf made failure unavoidable. Every test ended the same way. The beast followed Elira. Every command redirected back toward her. Every open gate led straight to wherever she stood. By the 4th attempt, even the guards stopped volunteering. Now the wolf rested beside Elira openly in the upper palace garden, while servants pretended not to stare from the pathways below. The ribbon still remained tied around its front paw, untouched, unmovable. Rhaegor approached alone. The wolf noticed him immediately but didn't rise. That alone would have shocked the kingdom weeks earlier. Now it felt normal. Elira looked up from the stone bench. "The council sent another healer this morning." "And?" "He lasted 6 minutes before giving up." Rhaegor almost smiled. "Longer than the last one." The wolf shifted closer against Elira's side as if agreeing. Rhaegor stopped directly in front of them both, then looked down at the ribbon again. "You know," he said quietly, "half the kingdom thinks you bewitched my wolf." Elira looked unimpressed. "The other half?" "They think the wolf chose better than I did." That finally earned a small reaction from her. A faint smile. Small. Real. The wolf rested its head lightly against her knee afterward, completely calm beneath her touch. Rhaegor watched the movement silently for a moment, then spoke again. "I spent years forcing control over that beast." Elira looked at him carefully. "And now?" Rhaegor's gaze shifted toward the wolf beside her. "Now it ignores commands for a servant girl carrying laundry ribbons." "That sounds personal." "It is." Silence settled comfortably this time. Not tense, not dangerous. Accepted. The wolf suddenly stood and crossed the short distance toward Rhaegor. Elira stiffened slightly, but the beast only stopped beside him briefly before turning back toward her again. choosing. Again. Rhaegor noticed the movement too, then exhaled quietly. I think that's the part I finally understand. Elira tilted her head slightly. What part? Rhaegor looked at the ribbon one last time. You were never the one being tested. The wolf settled beside Elira once more. Protective, final, and for the first time. The Alpha King stopped trying to command what had already chosen for itself.